China has more than doubled construction of new wind and solar plants over the past year. But even as companies and investors move to ride the winds of change, China's coal consumption is expected to continue to rise. Olivia Xiong tells us more.
These wind turbine blades span a mammoth 91 meters, or almost the length of a football field. No easy feat to build, and this factory produces 24 of such blades each month. But from the middle of this year, its capacity is set to double as it builds more production lines to meet China's growing demand to produce more wind energy. China already generated the most wind power capacity last year, almost tripling 2019 levels. It has also vowed to increase the share of energy generated by non-fossil fuels to around 20% by 2025, up from its 15% goal last year.
整个中国的碳排放、碳减排，而且是一个很大的市场，相当于，而且陆上的风电呢，相对逐渐的平稳期，海上是一个长足发展，就相当于可以后面有一个爆发的增长一样的。
That's why this company opened a new manufacturing facility on China's eastern coast in Nantong, Jiangsu province. It's focused on producing wind blades to be used at sea, while its two other factories in the north focus on blades to be used on land.
在陆上运输的话，因为有各种地理限制，拐弯或者各个高度限高受影响，所以说我们选择在江苏沿海这个靠近码头的地方进行建厂。
Jiangsu is part of the Yangtze River Delta region, an economic powerhouse for China where a growing amount of energy is needed. It's also where a large number of offshore wind power projects are being developed. I'm standing on the coast here in Nantong, and behind me are the wind turbines that have been built relatively close to the shore, and so they are easy to see. But what we can't see are the many other wind turbines that have been built way into the waters, up to 40 kilometers away from where we stand right now. And in the future, many more could be built even further into the sea. Offshore wind makes up a small but rapidly growing part of China's wind energy mix. Last year, the country installed the most offshore wind capacity in the world for the third straight year, and developers have rushed to place orders before government tariff subsidies taper off at the end of the year. While some have raised concerns if this means orders will slow down, May's Energy remains optimistic on the industry's prospects. Last September, Chinese President Xi Jinping had announced that the country aims to peak carbon emissions before 2030 and become carbon neutral by 2060.
It would be the opposite if there was no support from the central government, if there had not been a statement about carbon net neutrality, as ambitious as the target may be. I think we'd be definitely, swimming upstream, so to speak. The challenges, as always, come from the fact that, this is a very top-down driven process. It is when you're dealing with the government, you are always at the whim of the government, as you are in many countries around the world. So I think that's one of the challenges, whereas other parts of the world have tended to privatize a little bit quicker in terms of the private sector involvement in production of energy, including renewable energies.
But Greenpeace says there may still be a gap between the goals of the central and local governments. China still remains the world's biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, and Greenpeace noted that there has been an increase in coal-fired power capacity approved by local governments last year, more than double the total capacity in 2019.
They have different interests from central government. They are driven by the GDP growth, the more employment. They want better electricity supplies to help the local industries development. So in the short term, they think coal power industry can help with this interest.
So despite the heavy investments in green energy, unless China weans itself off its reliance on fossil fuels, carbon emissions look set to soar in the coming years. Olivia Xiong, CNA, Nantong.